Welcome to the Roz Project, episode 96, a conversation about life, entrepreneurship, personal development, family tech, and marketing. My name is Ivan Temulkov, and I'm your host. And joining me this morning is also my amazing co-host, Courtney Turner. Courtney, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's Friday, right?
It is right? Friday. Yeah, Friday.
So if this is your first time joining us on the podcast, we talk about 100% real, raw, unfiltered, life-changing advice to help you level up in every aspect of your life and business and help you reach your goals and dreams. You know what, Courtney? I got to tell you, this seemed like a really long week for some reason. I don't know why, but I was out of town. I was out of town this past weekend and Monday. So I got back on Monday, and I feel like the last 4 days. Here it is, Friday. Like it was a short week, but it was like a really long week where there was like so much happening. And, I'm actually kind of happy that it is Friday, but, being an entrepreneur, let's face it, Friday really isn't a Friday. It's not the end of the week. I mean, you're going into the weekend. So before we jump into some topics we want to talk about, if this is your first time tuning in, just want to let you know that we're multi-streaming right now, live in video, on my Facebook profile, my Facebook page, the Human Marketing Alliance Facebook group. If you're not a member of that, definitely look us up on LinkedIn Live, on Twitch, and also on Periscope. And of course, you can also catch the audio version of the Roz Project on all major outlets, including Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, Spotify. What did I forget? Spotify, Pandora, Amazon. I mean, it's everywhere. I can't believe it. It's everywhere at this point. So, yeah, you can definitely catch us everywhere. And I mentioned that I have a special announcement. So I mentioned I have a special announcement that I want to make, actually. And, I've been mulling this over for like a month, Courtney, or maybe longer, actually, ever since, let's see, it's been almost 2 months now that you've been on the show.
Yeah, I know. Wow.
It's crazy. It's been like almost 2 months. I mean, time flies when you're having fun, right?
Totally.
As they say. So, okay. So the big announcement is, one of the things that I've been struggling with is that there's been this huge influx of demand with the podcast. There's been so many people that have requested to be on, and the podcast is really, skyrocketed. So with that being said, I'm excited to announce the RAS Project Overdrive. And what is the RAS Project Overdrive? Well, you can still listen to the RAS Project live on all the major outlets every Monday and Friday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, with yours truly and my amazing co-host, Courtney Turner. But what Overdrive is that you get an extra dose of the RAS Project. That means you're going to be getting more content every week, straight to the favorite platform of your choice. And ladies and gentlemen, I have some doozy of episodes already lined up. I'm so excited to share it with you. So that's the big announcement that I wanted to share. Yeah, so more content, more value. So, okay, on to the next thing that I wanted to talk about. So, the last 3 weeks, Courtney, I feel like I've been like constantly out of town. Like,
it's traveling a lot. Yeah,
I know, right? So, like 3 weeks ago, I was out of town on a business trip, and then we had Thanksgiving, and actually, last weekend, I was out of town with family, just a little bit of R&R. I got to tell you, I saw 3 Santas in a weekend, to be honest with you. Saw 3 different Santa Clauses in a weekend.
Wow.
Yes. That's what you do, when you have kids. And You know what was really funny actually? So we walked up to this little hut that it was Santa's house, right? And it was a live reindeer. I shit you not. Like it was a live reindeer sitting on the sleigh. So it was very, very well decorated. But sitting there and Santa's, making a little chit chat with my kids. My daughter's 2 and my son is 4. And asked them, "What do you want for Christmas?" And my son's like, "I want Star Wars Legos and I want a moon digger." And Santa just kind of looks at him and they're chatting and chatting. And at some point, Santa goes, "So, have you seen Santa Claus already? Have you seen me?" And my son kind of looks up and then Santa goes, "Well, he might have been one of my cousins." And
Oh my goodness.
I was like, this Santa Claus just said that he has a cousin. And like, I'm sitting here, I'm like, I don't know if that was the best impression of my kids, dude. Like,
how did your kids respond to that?
I did not. I just kind of smirked, honestly. I probably should have said something.
How did your kids respond? How did your kids respond?
My son is actually very clever, believe it or not, and so is my daughter. But like, they're not old enough to where they'll be like, "What the fuck, Santa? Did you just say that you have a cousin?" Like they're not, old enough to fathom that. And but I just thought, like, after you said that, I was like, "Really, dude? Did you just tell my kids that you have a cousin?" That basically makes you obsolete in a way, But they just like my kids, yeah, they can't quite fathom that because they're like Santa. I mean, any Santa is a Santa to them. Any guy that's dressed up in a red suit and a hat is Santa Claus to them. They don't care. They don't know what they look like underneath the beard or who's dressed up. They just know that it's Santa Claus. But like the way he said it, I'm like, Santa Claus has a cousin? Does that mean that Mrs. Claus has a cousin also? And like they supplement each other on like, Christmas? Like that's the kind of impression. So like it was a little warping. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. How are your holidays going? How was your Thanksgiving? What have been up to? I think last time we went live was a couple of weeks ago, roughly.
Yeah, I think it was a couple of weeks ago now. Yeah, my Thanksgiving was nice. I stayed in town. They placed all these, I guess, kind of scares to discourage people rather from,
Sure.
flying. So I was planning to, go later when it's not around the holidays. But yeah, so I stayed home. A friend of mine did a very nice dinner. She's moving soon, so here before. And yeah, other than that, I've been here just kind of plugging away. I think the last time we did this, I took a short trip to Palm Springs and I did a podcast over there. I interviewed someone there. We did our show while I was there. But yeah, otherwise here. And so far, it's a very different holiday season than typical. So, just checking on.
It's a weird year, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, all around, it's a very weird year because, there's been so much that has happened. I mean, with COVID and the election and
there's so much to keep up with. I just feel like I am constantly, and I feel like I'm like constantly in a crash course, like trying to learn all the things that I don't know. So I love learning, so that's I enjoy that. But it's been a very hyper stimulated time, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was, speaking of weird times, is that I was having a couple of conversations with a couple of my clients, and when I actually brought up the point about the second stimulus package that they're all talking about that potentially might be coming down the pike, and there's obviously pros and cons to that. It's like the pros and cons, but just looking at the year overall, I mean, I think a lot of people are now being, around the holidays are like questioning, like, what kind of a year was 2020? Was it a good year? Was it a bad year? And I think it really varies on your experiences, like, what you went through and how did it affect your life, really? I think that's really the biggest thing. And before I actually forget, one thing that I wanted to talk about on this show, and this is really exciting, is to talk about Whim. So this is a project that you have been working on for quite some time, and we chatted about this I think yesterday, and I wanted you to share more about Whim, because Whim is something that, I'm very excited about, like, getting it out there in the world, and you really pursuing that. But let's tell people about what is Whim.
Okay, so WHIM stands for What is Movement? And it's an idea that came to me. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a backstory behind it. It's quite a few years ago now, but back in 2014, I tried out for American Ninja Warrior. And when I tried out, for those of you who don't know, when you try out, you have to submit a video, kind of your testimony of why they should take you. And when I did, I had shared a little bit about my personal story and some of my physical and medical challenges that I've had to deal with. And when I did this video, I submitted it, and my ex-boyfriend had been a professional editor. He had made the video for me. So it was this massive file. And just to give you all a little sense of how big this file was, he told me I had a 2-hour window the next day if I wanted any changes to be made. So I tried to upload it, immediately, so that I could get some feedback, send it out. And even to render my own computer, I couldn't do it in less than 72 hours. I didn't have 72 hours. There was a 2-hour day. So I was trying to figure out how I was going to get this uploaded so that I could get some feedback. And the portal that would upload it the fastest was Facebook. Now, just so you know, Facebook makes things pretty easy. They want as much of your information and content as they possibly can get. But it still took 10 minutes on Facebook. So it shows you just how big this file was. So I uploaded it onto Facebook, and I made it private. It was a private album, and I sent it in a message to 6 people, very close people, my parents, my sister, my trainer, my best friend, and two of those people were I call him my big brother. We're not biologically related, but I put him in business years ago, and he really is like my big brother. And he was my manager when I lived in New York as an actress. And then it was also one of my production partners, who was also a lawyer. And I got a call 6 a.m. because he's in New York, three hours ahead. And he woke me up saying, I saw your video. And I said, yeah, I sent it in a private message. Like, I wanted your feedback. He said, no, it's public. And I immediately welled up with tears. I started crying. And he said, don't worry about it. Legally, you're fine. You say it's a submission video. The worst they can do is not pick you. And he said, I think that's what's going to happen and you'll, as I share in a minute, you'll understand why, for those of you who don't know. But he said that the thing about my story that he feels is interesting from a television perspective is the reveal. He said most people, who don't know my story, and you see what I do, and then hear the story afterwards, that's much more impressive from an entertainment perspective, was his analysis. So he said that's probably what's going to happen. But he said, legally, you're fine. Don't worry about it. He said, it's just, I wanted to call you because it's really personal. I've never heard you share your story on camera before. He knew me for a really long time. Yeah. And so I went up to look, and I was ready to take it down. And I saw that overnight it had been seen by 3,000 people. More than people. Yeah. And this was like,
Well, one thing I wanted to actually mention, Courtney, before you finish the story without being a total asswipe and abruptly interjecting, is I encourage anyone watching right now or on the replay to go and watch the first episode of the Courtney Turner podcast. You can search for it on YouTube, on Courtney's YouTube channel, because I'm telling you guys, it will change your perspective today of your life. Literally, I'm getting shivers down my spine just vocalizing this. Keep going, Courtney. Keep talking about Whim.
So so I went and I saw, and this was, I certainly was not an influencer. That was a lot of views for me. And it was before the days of really, where I even knew what influencers were. So,
right.
But I realized that I couldn't rescind the video because I think Facebook has changed their structure now. But then, once it had been shared publicly, it could keep being shared even if I took mine down. So I, just left it up there and trusted that if that many people were interested, then maybe there was something, that people found of value, and to trust to leave it up there. So I did, and long story not so short, but fast forward, I did not get picked to run the course. I was really devastated. So to give you a little sense of how devastated I was, I didn't do pull-ups for 6 weeks because I emotionally couldn't handle it. And you can see I have a pull-up bar right there. Like, this is a big deal for me. But I emotionally really couldn't handle it. I need to give myself a mourning period. And after those 6 weeks, I said to myself, okay, Courtney, like, it's time to, move on, snap out of this. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And maybe do some pull-ups again because I really love them. But I,
which, by the way, speaking of those pull-ups, Courtney is probably one of the most pliable person I think I have ever seen on the internet. I shit you not. Like, go and see some of her Instagram posts, and suddenly you'll realize that, like, you know what? Like, I didn't know people could do stuff like that. You've done some amazing, like, acrobat type, like, exercises that are on your Instagram that literally the first time I saw it, I was like, what the fuck? I didn't even know people could do something like that. So anyway, that's an accomplishment. That's an accomplishment, Courtney.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So I was, like, okay, I need to figure out what to do. But I'm a huge believer that, when you go through, like, a difficult time, that there's a lesson that can be taken, to learn from it and to move forward. And that will help you in, propelling your life, and moving forward. And that's very cliche. I think a lot of us understand that, through hardships, there's lessons to be garnered. But one thing that I feel is really important is not just to take the hard lessons and look at those and, try and figure out what you can learn from them, but to also find what is a positive lesson, something that is, because I'm a believer that hope is what propels us. We need hope to move forward. And so it was really important for me to try and find something of, that was really something really positive that from this whole experience that was quite devastating for me. And the one thing that kept coming up for me was the overwhelming responses from people of how inspired they were and how much my story touched them. And we're very close to ourselves, so, like, I don't think of myself as all that inspiring because I live with me day in and day out. So I often think quite the opposite. But
so, speaking of the story, actually, one thing that I wanted to latch upon on that, Courtney, is because we're segueing into the main topic that I wanted you to discuss on this episode, is that really your story and the value is what impacts people. And it's what's actually really ironic is about a week or 2 weeks ago, I believe, one of my biggest clients, actually, one of their co-founders in their technology startup, actually had reached out to me on Slack and said, Ivan, we haven't really had a chance, to chat. And I've been working with him for almost a year now. And he said, I found your story extremely inspiring, so much that I want to echo that into our company.
Oh my God.
And like, this is borderline almost like quoting them. And what was really fascinating about that, and why I'm actually alluding to this, because you mentioned it, is, I'm one of those people that, like, on the outside, like, first impression, people are like, who is this clown? He curses, he's unorthodox, he's a little different. Who the hell is this guy? But you know what? Like, I'm the guy the people actually need in their lives, because we live in a world of mediocrity. I'm the guy that shakes things up. I'm the guy that's polarizing. I'm the guy that's going to put things into perspective and make you realize that, what the fuck? I've been living under a rock all this time. And so it was so, and when you were talking about your story, that's just it. That's why Whim skyrocketed, is because it created an emotional impact in other people's lives. And guess what? That literally is what moves people. That is why this podcast, the RAS Project, has now been running for 6 years. And even though it has pivoted so many times, it has finally found its place. This is why you're here on the podcast, is because you are also inspiring and motivating people through your own story. And that's why I wanted you to talk about Whim, because it truly is a movement that's going to shake up the entire world. And I'm beyond excited to be a part of this. So again, without being, abruptly interjecting here, let's finish out and talk more about Whim and the first episode.
Now we'll get to right to, so how this is how Whim was created. Essentially, so I realized how people felt about it, and I started to think, wow, this is amazing. Like, wouldn't it be incredible if I had a platform to showcase athletes with disabilities? I find them so inspiring. And I thought that would be rewarding and validating for them and inspiring for others watching. So I started to talk. I had actually a couple of friends, and I talked to some others, and started to get an idea for how I would create this platform, possibly a medium that I thought was a win-win for everyone. And the more that I talked to these athletes with disabilities, I realized they don't move in spite of. Most of them moved, or I would actually argue all of them, actually all the ones I spoke to, moved because of. It was because it empowered them. It helped them to heal in every kind of way, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And that's where I came up with the crux of my message, which is that all human beings are designed to move, but the ways in which we do are our unique creative expressions. And that's where I came up with Whim, and we explore the healing power of movement, the ways that movement helps people to heal emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And the first episode is based on me, my personal story. For those of you who don't know, I was born with congenital rubella. So my mother had German measles during the first trimester of pregnancy, and that rendered me with several medical and health complications, not limited to, but including I had a cataract on my eye one of my eyes when I was first born. I'm blind in that eye. I wear bilateral hearing aids, but I didn't get them until I was almost 6 years old. I learned how to speak by reading lips. So currently the masks are really, really difficult for me. I can't hear anything. I never realized just how much I depend on lip reading until now. Because I learned how to speak that way, but I've worn hearing aids so much of my life that I didn't realize I still actually depend on that, But yeah, I was born with hypotonic limbs, so the muscles in my limbs didn't develop. I had fine graphic motor impairment. I was born missing 10 teeth. I'm actually going to have oral surgery in a little bit today. My growth was stunted. There were several complications, and they told my mom the best she could hope was to find a nice institution for me to spend my life. Fortunately, my mom didn't believe that and did not take that as an answer. So, she was a fighter, and thanks to, her belief and the spirit of her will, I'm here and thriving. But Whim is about how movement helps people to heal. And I truly feel that movement has been a huge part of not only my survival, but my thriving in this world. So,
as you were sharing your story, which there were a couple of things that I don't think a lot of people, really fathom the severity of that, is when you said at a very young age that you learn how to understand people by reading lips, because you didn't have hearing aids, until later on. And, I looking at someone like myself, or the average human being, is like, we're born with a pair of eyes. We're born with a pair of ears, we're born with a pair of 2 feet and a pair of hands. And I think that we take that for granted, or at least most people do. And they don't realize that, the very things that God gave us, like the ability to hear and to see and to move, that are the very things that actually shape our lives, everything that we do. Because let's face it, if you can't see and you're blind, it creates challenges for you. If you can't hear, because seeing and hearing are the 2 things that you need. You can't do anything in life or in business without, you can, but it's going to create a set of challenges for you.
Absolutely.
Most people don't understand how advantageous, how big of a blessing that is.
Yeah. And I wore a patch over my sighted eye every other day of my childhood. So I had I don't have as much now because I developed glaucoma, lots of complications, but I had a little bit more vision in my left eye when I was younger, and I wore a patch over my sighted eye to try and strengthen that. So I was essentially blind and deaf because I didn't have hearing aids yet every other day of my childhood.
Yeah.
That was a really, it was really difficult. And very emotionally challenging as well. I played the role of Helen Keller when I lived in New York City on stage. And for most actors, that's a sensorial exercise that's very difficult. But for me, it was emotionally traumatic. I had to allow myself to be able to recall and access parts of myself that I've spent most of my life trying to overcome. So, yeah.
So one thing that actually, and I wanted to segue into the main topic that I wanted to talk about in this episode, and that is, are you in it to win it? And you've mentioned something that really, got my brain, jogging, and that is the fact that, being born with, disadvantages, right? Or challenges, I should say. Most people will probably dwell on that or fall into a state of self-pity because it creates, like you said, this emotional roller coaster. It makes you think that, I'm not good enough. It really creates a sense of stress and anxiety and depression. And all of these things are, disadvantages that really warp people, their personalities and their character forces them not, to really create shortcomings for themselves. But, you are unwilling to settle for that. Your mom was unwilling to settle for that. And that really goes into what I wanted to talk about in this episode is, are you in it to win it? And I think at a very young age, your mother knew this, that she was unwilling to give up. She was willing to fight for what she believed in. She was willing to fight for you because she knew that, and I don't know if it's, it's definitely an act of God for sure. It's an act of faith for sure, that really, drove that. But I think that's what really takes, nowadays to really become, to achieve the things that you want in life and in business, and to become the person that you have always aspired to be. And I think that's in part what you spent a good part of your life. You realize that, okay, so I wasn't dealt the cards that most people are dealt, right? I wasn't, born with a silver spoon, and some people are born with a silver spoon and tend to somehow fuck up their lives because, they have everything, but they just don't know how to use it. So you figured, okay, well, I'm going to pave my own way. I'm going to create my legacy. I'm going to create my future. And I think one of the most, and I'm thinking back to, 2017 for myself personally. 2017, I was bankrupt. And I remember, having to go in and pay $500 just to file for bankruptcy. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, why in the hell is this happening to me? Like, what the fuck did I do wrong? But it's, the more I think about it now, it's like, and I made a post actually about this, like, don't look back. What's in the past is in the past. Focus on the future. Sure. And that's just it. I don't care if you were born disabled. I don't care if you were born blind. I don't care if you were born deaf. If you are alive, you still have a chance to do everything that you ever wanted. You just have to be strong enough, determined enough, focused enough, committed enough to do it. And I think that's exactly what you've done.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. So my high school year was actually do not go where the path may lead, go instead where there's no path and leave a trail. So that very much speaks to what you were just saying. And I think the other thing I would like to add that all of that is true. The determination, persistence, commitment is absolutely essential. But I think the other element is actually courage. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are inhibited by fear. And they don't go after what they want because they're afraid, whether they're afraid that they won't succeed or they're afraid they will succeed, or they're just afraid of the dark forces within themselves. There's so much of success is about being able to, it's not about not being afraid, where we all have fears, but it's about having the courage to do really difficult things. So.
You're absolutely right. And one thing actually I wanted to talk about that because so there's some people out there who are probably like, because I've been posting about my fitness journey, and I wanted to talk about that as a prime example, right, of success, because that's one thing that's important to me. I have I have gone through like, probably a couple of years at least, of like ups and downs and roller coasters of like, I'll get started, I'll progress, and then like I'll digress. I have plateaus, and I feel like that probably even spans back to 20 years, because back in September, I was actually at the lowest weight that I've been since I was 18 years old. I was at 200 pounds, which I haven't been. Well, I was 185 when I was 18, but I was at 200 pounds. And, as I was reflecting on this, right? So, like, I was at the gym 3 nights ago, and let's just say that I made bad choices last week and gained 4 pounds, because that's literally what happened. It was my bad choices. It was my fuck ups, and I had to take accountability, of it. So, like, I'm at the gym, and now I'm gonna, like, this is actually going to be day 3 of trying to burn 700 calories in cardio in addition to my regular workout. And if you fathom that, anyone that's in fitness, that's fucking insane to do that. It literally is like putting your body through that extreme of a workout. So here I am on the stationary bike sitting, and I'm pedaling my ass away at like 20, 30, 40-minute increments to burn 700 calories, because it does literally take that long to do that. And I can't help but not observe people at the gym. Like, it's hard not to. And when you're at the bike and you're staring at the TV, and like, there's not much more you can do. You know what's really fascinating, Courtney, is to see how many people half-ass shit.
Yeah.
Like at the gym. Like I'll see someone come over, like 2 bikes over, we'll sit down for like 5 minutes and walk away. It's like, what the fuck, dude? That was a 5-minute workout. Like, how in the hell is that productive? Like, you might as well not even come to the gym. And
you can do 5-minute workouts that are very effective. You're really going all out. To truly go all out for 5 minutes is actually really, really hard. Very few people can do that.
Right.
So most people aren't doing that. They're half-assing 5 minutes.
That's just it. That's just it. Yeah. And that was my observation. And I think I had an epiphany, a couple of epiphanies, and I realized that that's why I started doing my accountability post on Facebook, is because I realized that I am doing the work. I am putting the time. And you know what? Is as long as I'm doing that, because if you really want to win, and for me, is like, I actually sent the picture to a friend of mine. It was a model that I saw actually on Instagram with like one of these like really tight shirts on. And I'm like, that's going to be me. And I'm like, dude, how long is it going to take realistically to make this happen? He's like, well, by next summer, by beach time, probably not, but 18 months, maybe, like maybe if you like follow the course with, your nutrition and your workout, because as you know, 80% of it is really nutrition, what you eat. And I tend to fuck up on my nutrition because I do good and then I fuck up. And so, but that's my determination. I want to win. And there's a difference between failing and quitting. And I think that's where most people misconstrue that.
I absolutely agree. And I think, yes, it's determination, it's persistence. And one of the things that when I talk about Whim, I think people often ask, like, why isn't this a show about like, training or fitness and I call it movement for a reason, because all human beings are designed to move. Not everybody's going to be an Olympic athlete, but we all move, and we all move in different ways. And it's really, I think movement teaches us so much about ourselves and about how we go through life. I say that movement is a metaphor for life. And I actually have a framework for resiliency that using what I call movement mindset. And it's because, take an Olympic athlete, just for example, think of this, that no matter how gifted, how talented that athlete is, they're not getting to the Olympics by sitting on the couch. It's just not going to happen. Right. You have to put the work in. And that's even the most genetically gifted person. They still have to put the work in. That's not true with everything. Some things, you can have talent, you can coast a little. You still have to put work in. But a true athlete knows it's really use it or lose it. And you have to keep putting the work in day out. And, and that's not just in the gym. There's a lot of mindset work. There's a lot of, like nutrition work. There's a recovery. There's a lot that goes into it. But I think what it is that mindset teaches you so much about who you are as a person, what matters to you, and what are you willing to do for the things that matter to you. What do you, and how do you handle setbacks? How do you handle things when things are difficult? And also, this is another thing that I think people don't think too much about, that I think movement really does teach you, is what do you do when things are easy? Do you coast, rest in your laurels? Do you only gravitate towards those things? Are you willing to keep pushing even when something comes naturally? There's just so much that movement teaches you. I think it's ultimately it's great to have the, physical evolution and, all the aesthetic benefits that come from it and the mood enhancement. But it's really, I think, ultimately a great personal development tool.
It really is. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, and I actually wanted to talk about that because, I've chatted with you about it. I've chatted about it with several people too, but this has probably been my biggest struggle, honestly, because mind you, I've been a cyclist for 7 years now, and even to this day, I still. Well, I know now why I started doing it, but in the first 4 years, I couldn't answer it. I thought it was just endurance. I thought it was just, hey, I just need to get into shape. This is a way for me to get cardio. But it really shifted into mindset development and personal development. And that's when I think maybe about 3 years ago, when I really started to fathom the importance of health and fitness and how it has changed my personal life and my business. And I will be honest with you, like right now, from a business standpoint, I'm on the cusp of the largest deals in the history of 5 years of my business. I mean, these are huge. And if those do happen, I'll have some major announcements around that. But let's not toot the horn that fast. But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It is mindset. It is personal development. It really changes your behavior. And if you change your behavior to where, you sharpen your mind like an axe and you become more focused and more determined, like that really translates to all other aspects and facets of life and business.
Yeah.
And it's what's really fascinating about that too is that when I've looked at successful people like millionaires and billionaires, other people that have been on the show too, over the last 6 years, and there's been some superstars, and some Hollywood stars, so to speak, on the podcast. But I look at these people and most people are like starstruck about it, which I made another post about that. But in reality, they're just very disciplined disciplined because fitness and health is actually a huge part of their daily life.
Yes, disciplined and consistent. That's really a huge part of it. It's not the short bursts. It's the day in, the day out. And I think that absolutely fitness does teach you a lot about discipline, because the thing about it is that it's hard. A lot of people get excited. It's like we see the cliche of the gyms in January and everybody's all like on a high. I'm going to go after this goal this year. And, by February, it's like really empty and you have access to all the machines again, which I personally enjoy. But I think, that really speaks volumes to just human nature. People get excited about something. We see the shiny, glittery ball. And we're like, oh, I want that. But are you willing to? It's not easy to get. And that's the thing that I think that, so I always say this about fitness in particular, the glittery object is usually like somebody's like, I want that body. Like they have this vision of their dream body, and that's great. I support people wanting to look good, feel good, absolutely. However, it's usually not enough to motivate somebody to really keep pushing themselves day in and day out, to when they've got a busy schedule, get up earlier or go to the gym later at night, to dial in their nutrition, whatever it may be, to not half-ass workout, to really be focused and allow themselves to be present in that moment. These are things that are so valuable for all of life. And you see that when you do any kind of physical training, because your brain will play all sorts of tricks on you. Human beings are inherently lazy. And it's not because we're just like, these like, lazy creatures, that are like nothing. Not in that sense, but we're lazy because it's a function of biology. It's efficiency. The human body needs to preserve in order to survive. You're not going to burn up all your resources. It's like you get
I agree.
you're not going to spend it all at once. Then you have nothing for the rest of, to your next paycheck. And it's the same thing with your physical resources. So for the function of survival, of course, life has gotten easier in a lot of ways in terms of being able to physically survive. So we don't have to be quite as efficient as we did, as our ancestors perhaps had to. But our bodies don't know that. The biology hasn't really evolved in thousands of years. And so, if we can cheat ourselves in a really difficult movement, we're going to. And that's because of biology. And it's up to our mindset to tell us, no, like, this is worth it. It's worth staying in it, and it's worth pushing through. And you have to figure out if that's a priority for you. But movement teaches you that. So
there's two things that you mentioned that I wanted to allude to. And the first one is when you were talking about like New Year's. So we're in December, and this is the month that people start making the New Year's resolutions, right? And what does that look like every year for most people? Is like, oh, January 1st, I'm going to get into the gym. I'm going to get, a membership. And then, by the end of January, there's nowhere to be found, those people. 2 weeks into the gym. So it's something like, what the fuck? Like, why did you, like, what was the point behind this New Year's resolution, right? What was the point behind, like, just getting so amped up and jazzed up about the gym and you're going to lose weight, and then like 2 weeks into January, like, what happened?
So this is just it, is that I feel like, I was saying how people have this vision of what they want. The problem is that what I've realized is that most people, that gets them in, and that gets them in for January. They'll sign up for the year, but it's not going to keep them there past February. I find that people who stay in it recognize the value of their personal development. They recognize what it does for them as a human being. And I don't just mean the health benefits. Obviously, we can, pull up all the scientific studies and resources that show, movement is the great way to mitigate against cognitive decline. We obviously see, biomarkers improve. There's all sorts of studies that are scientifically proven to speak to the value of movement. However, I find that really what people love is how empowering it is, that it teaches them that they're capable of things they didn't know they were capable of. That keeps them coming back and keeps them motivated to keep pushing themselves and do things that are really difficult and uncomfortable.
And you're absolutely right. But the other thing I actually wanted to mention that you said, was so true is just that, I don't think people have enough determination and commitment to reach and accomplish the things that they want to. We're not just talking about fitness. I mean, you want to build a business, you got to have that kind of level of resilience. So principally, it's all the same, whether it's fitness, nutrition, relationships, business, it's all the same. You need commitment. You need determination. You need discipline. You need consistency. In fact, I want to be honest with you. I mean, this year alone, when I, take inventory of, some of the business deals that have happened, is one of the top reasons why I've won those is because of consistency. Yeah. And let's face it, like I even mentioned this, like with my fitness 2 nights ago, I only burned 500 calories in cardio because I thought I was going to collapse my ass at the gym. Literally, that was like my second night, and so like, I vocalized it on social media because I was like, you know what? If you're going to talk the talk, walk the walk. So I knew I fucked up. I fell short. I wanted to take accountability, but you know what? I'm not going to quit. I'm back in the gym. I'm going to do the work.
You only fail if you give up. I mean, everybody has setbacks, and oftentimes those setbacks are actually what lead to your biggest progress, because you learn from them, and because they give you that opportunity to decide whether or not you're going to stick with this for the long haul. And I think they also teach you that you really can't mess up. You only mess up if you really give up.
Yeah.
I think you learn that from those little setbacks. You're like, wait, I thought that was going to be the end, but it's not. I can keep going, and actually now I'm making even more progress. And I think it's so powerful for people.
So my average gym workouts are now like 2 to 2.5 hours. And actually 2 nights ago was nearly 3 because it was my second night. And, For anyone that's into fitness, or even for those that are not, let me tell you, burning 700 calories, on cardio takes forever. You're talking about, I mean, even if you're on.
Don't realize that at all. And those estimates are usually not even accurate.
Yeah.
But they're framework, and it's something to track. But people have no idea. Like it takes a lot.
That's just it. Most people, and so you were talking about, like, I mentioned that I shared a photo to a friend of mine that I found actually a fitness model on Instagram because they had like these really suave kind of shirts, and I really liked it. But like, I looked at the guy, I'm like, this guy's buff, pecs are, muscles are popping. I'm like, yeah, I want to look like that guy. I want the six pack. But like, what does it really take to accomplish that? Right. But even then, what does it take to maintain it?
Yep. That's actually much, much more difficult because the body is designed to be efficient for survival reasons, right? So we have a tendency to adapt. And so I typically, when I'm working with clients, the one thing I really try and deter them from doing is making really drastic cuts with their diet and going extreme with exercise. And the reason for this is because whatever you're doing, you're going to have to keep doing and increasing. So, like you cut your calories, 500 calories, let's say, and you get to a point where you're seeing results, eventually you're going to have to cut more from there. If you're doing 1 hour of exercise and, whatever the level of intensity and difficulty is, you're only going to have to increase it to continue to see benefits and progress. So I really want people to be able to do the minimal to get started and to be able to do things that they enjoy, that they're going to continue to do. Because ultimately, as exciting as it is to, have a six pack, to, have the body that you want to have, ultimately, you want to be moving for the rest of your life. And you want to be moving well for the rest of your life. You want to feel good in your body. You want it to be capable, functional, and healthy. So, going all in, and some people need to do that. And I'm okay with it for, specific periods of time as well. People have a specific goal, whether that be performance oriented, aesthetic oriented. But, ultimately it's about sustainability. How long can you keep that up? How long will you want to keep that up?
Well, that's everything that we just talked about, everything that you just mentioned within the last, minute or a couple of minutes, principally from a methodology, from a psychology standpoint, is applicable to business because, let's face it, let's say you start a business, right? And the business is going well, right? And you're inclining, but then you have to figure out how to sustain. Like, how do I sustain the business, right? Like, how do I keep it growing? How do I keep getting more leads? How do I keep getting more customers? How do I keep making more money, right? And at the core of that's where I think, fitness and nutrition has come into play because it gives you the clarity and the focus that you need to make better decisions all around. And I'll tell you this, I'm a guy who, I smoked until I was, 26 years old. Obviously, I quit. I'm 40 years old now. So it's been, over, close to over a decade, close to 2 decades. But still, like, I just look at, my young self and I'm like, I've made so many fuck ups, so many mistakes, but the reality of things is, I think you're young. Yeah, you're young, you're uneducated, you're stupid with your choices. And, but I feel like that's part of life. Like, you got to live and learn because that's how you find, your calling, your purpose. Like, what are you after? And if you really want to win, you have to develop that resilience. You have to develop that discipline, that consistency. And you have to realize that, fitness and nutrition are a huge part of that also, because if you're proactive, that's another thing is just that if you can be proactive with your fitness and nutrition, you're going to be proactive with a lot of other things. Yeah. It's like the saying that how you do one thing is how you do everything. And here's a prime example actually of that. So I introduced rice cakes into my diet and I fucking love these things. Like they're so good, and actually they only have about 3 grams of added sugar to it. So like that's not bad at all, And so last night I was actually having one of those because it was one of my meals. and one of the rice cakes, the crumble like broke off and fell on the floor accidentally. And I'm like looking down, and I'm like, you pick it up, don't wait to sweep it later, pick it up now. And it got me thinking about like how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you don't give the attention to like picking up your mess, you're probably not going to be as proactive about other things in your life and business and health and nutrition. And, that's just it. If you're in it to win it, you got to do everything that everybody else is not doing.
Yeah. I think it's also one thing about movement is it's a very tangible teacher, and it's very empowering. So when you realize that you can do something, like in business, it may take a while for you to realize your goals, even one goal.
Yeah.
And that you should certainly continue to keep going for it. But with movement, I think it's very concrete. When you get that first, like, we'll just take a push-up, for example. When you get that first push-up, you can't argue with it. You know you did it. And I think, and that's incredibly empowering. And I think it teaches you, hey, if I put this work in, I didn't think it was possible. And now I see it is, because I put the work in, I kept the consistency and, doing the work. And I think that empowers people to take on other challenges. And sometimes it's as simple as just getting that in for the day, whether it be, just getting that workout in for the day, or just doing any kind of, sometimes it's as simple as like, I'm going to go for a walk, and, you get that done and people feel like, okay, I can go take on something else. Because sometimes we just get, I call it like we get like stymied. It's like analysis paralysis. We're so overwhelmed by all the things that we're faced with that we want to do, and that we just can't do anything. And when you have something you can check off your box, that's really empowering, and it really helps us to propel forward. So
it really is. It really is. And on that note, actually, there was so much value dropped in this episode. I'm a huge fan of your psychology, that, and I want to iterate it again because I'm a huge fan of psychology myself. I think there's so much in life and in business and entrepreneurship that is psychological. In fact, one of the quotes that has been stuck in my head for at least a couple of years is Tony Robbins. Business is 90% psychology, 10% execution. And I keep thinking more about that. I'm like, well, this guy gets paid millions, for psychology. Why couldn't I? And you could apply that really to any industry, any business. It's the psychology aspect of it. So, with that being said, thank you again, Courtney. Amazing conversation as always. And I wanted to wish you best of luck actually on the surgery. I know you got a big day ahead of you today. So you're in for a long haul today. And we've got a doozy of an episode coming up on Monday. I'm not going to reveal too many details, but it's probably going to be the best live episode I think that we've had thus far. So I'm pretty stoked about it. But have an amazing rest of your day, Courtney, and everyone watching out there. And have a great weekend. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of the RAS Project.
Yeah, take care.
Bye-bye.